What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Welcome to day 359 of the 365-day graphic novel review challenge. Today, I want to talk to you about Earth 2, Volume 6, Collision. This collects issues 27 through 32 of Earth 2. This is the finale of that series. This is written by a few different people, Margaret Bennett, Daniel H. Wilson, and Tom Taylor. Tom Taylor, he wrote and co-wrote some of the earlier issues of this book, and then kind of handed it off to Margaret Wilson, or Margaret Bennett and Daniel H. Wilson. And then we have art here by Trevor Scott, who's done a few of the issues in earlier volumes, as well as Andy Smith and Mike Johnson. And this volume is not very good. This series has kind of been on a collision course, no pun intended, because, you know, it's titled Collision. This has kind of been on a collision course with a big, huge brick wall for a while now, because we have gone through a whole bunch of creative teams in a relatively short amount of time. This series lasted 32 issues, and we had like 5 writers. That's really not good, especially since every writer has their very own creative vision that is completely different and inconsistent with what came before. James Robinson had certain ideas that he was planting in the series, and then he didn't get a chance to explore those ideas because he left the series kind of in a hurry. And then Tom Taylor stayed on this series for a couple of volumes, and he had his own ideas that were different than what James Robinson did, and I ultimately liked what he did, but he was ignoring a lot of what James Robinson was setting up in the first 3 volumes. And now we have Bennett and Wilson, and they're doing their very own thing here that makes absolutely no sense and comes completely out of nowhere. If you are only reading the main Earth 2 series, then this volume is a huge slap in the face and a major disappointment. I like the first 5 volumes, even with all the problems and continuity issues where Red Tornado meets Mr. Miracle and Fury, and then we never see Fury again, and then Mr. Miracle's working for Bedlam, and Red Tornado is suddenly got the personality of Lois Lane. Even stuff like that, it's still a pretty good 5 volumes of the series. This volume, I don't know what's going on. There are so many new characters introduced here, and then ultimately nothing is done with them. In Volume 5, I believe either Desaad or Bedlam mentioned that the Four were coming, and then this volume introduces the Four and then doesn't do anything with them. The Four are these 4 horsemen of Darkseid, basically. There's a character from Warworld, there's a character from Zarnia, who is friends with the Earth 2 version of Lobo. There is a Tamaranian who might be Starfire. They never actually call her by name, but she's one of the horsemen. And then there's also a Martian woman. And those are the 4 horsemen. And it's supposed to be a really big deal, except that after we get their origin issue, they don't do anything in this series. We never get to see them do anything terrible or horrifying. They're played up as being really scary and menacing, and then we don't get to see them do anything scary or menacing. Show, don't tell. Or better yet, don't show and don't tell. Don't do an entire issue on these 4 characters and then not do anything with them. Then after that, we get an entire issue that shows the Earth 2 version of Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon and their son, where they are kidnapped by, I guess, the Earth 2 version of Harley Quinn. She has a hammer. She's got a playing card thing tattooed on her arm. Her hair kind of looks sort of like Harley's hair a little bit, except she's an African-American woman, but I'm assuming this is the Earth 2 version of Harley Quinn. Her name is Lottie, I think, and she kidnaps Dick and Barbara, and it's going to feed Barbara to a parademon, and then we get to see these guys escape, and they're kind of like Nick and Nora in a post-apocalyptic future. And again, don't waste an entire issue on these characters that we have never seen in a series before and will never see in this series again. Dick and Barbara do not show up in the rest of this series. That's 2 issues so far that has not done anything with any of the characters that we've seen in this series so far. Also, out of nowhere, Huntress and Power Girl are back on this Earth. I have not read any of the World's Finest series from the New 52. I believe the premise of that series was that Helena and Kara, they were stuck on Earth 1 instead of their native Earth 2, and they were trying to get back to their home world. Apparently, they do get back in between issues of this series. If you're reading from Volume 5 to Volume 6, suddenly these characters are back in Earth 2. That's very confusing for me because I haven't read any of World's Finest. If I'm supposed to, maybe put a little footnote at the beginning of that issue that says, hey, this volume takes place after World's Finest Volume 3 or after World's End Volume 1 or whatever, because right around the time when this volume begins, the World's End event was starting. That was like a 26-issue series, I think, that also involve the characters from Earth 2. I have not read any of the World's End series. If I need to read World's End before I read Volume 6 of this series, tell me at the beginning of this volume. That would be a little bit frustrating, but I would much prefer that to jumping into this and finding out that I was supposed to read World's End first. I don't know if I was or not, but we see these characters who haven't been part of this series at the beginning of this book, and I don't understand what's going on. I don't know if I missed something or if they're just not good writers. I have a feeling they're just not good writers. There is so much stuff here that's introduced that they do nothing with. They reveal that Green Lantern's fiance, or almost fiance, Sam, that he has been chosen to be the avatar of the White, because apparently Green Lantern, he is the avatar of the Green. There is a avatar of the Red, an avatar of the Black. We saw the avatar of the Black with Solomon Grundy. Apparently, every color has an avatar. The avatar of the Blue is a big sea monster. This is a little bit inconsistent with everything that we've seen before. If you remember back in like Volume 3, Captain Steel, he went into one of the fire pits and then he came out screaming about how the Red Lantern was going to destroy the Earth. Now we find out that the Red Lantern is not actually a Red Lantern at all. It is the Beast from the Tower of Fate that we saw in Volume 2. This Beast that was trying to eat the Flash and Dr. Fate, apparently it is the avatar of the Red. It is in no way a lantern like Green Lantern is. It is just a big monster with horns. And apparently it is a character, if I'm not mistaken, this is the same character who became the Wildcat around the time of Crisis on Infinite Earths. I'm 99% sure of that. She has the same first name. I think it's the same character. But you see here that she is chosen, or actually her cousin is chosen to be the avatar of the Red, but she chooses to go in his place. And we don't get to see anything else with her either. We are told later by Captain Steel that she was kidnapped by Desaad and was in the fire pit for a really long time. No, she was not. She was in the Tower of Fate in Volume 2, and then in Volume 3, that's when Captain Steel went into the fire pit. So at the very least, she was in the fire pit for like a week, but he's acting like she was been in there for months and months, and that just doesn't add up. There is so much here that doesn't work. At one point, we're told that all the avatars of the different colors are working together, but we don't get to see any of that happen. We get to see Dr. Fate. He goes to Apocalypse, and his helmet chooses another wearer, and then goes back to him. This volume is a mess. It feels like all of this is a tie-in to the World's End series, which I have not read. Now, if you have read it, and you say that that makes this volume make a lot more sense, I don't care, because I don't think that I should have to read that volume or read that series in order to understand what's going on here. If I just want to read the main Earth 2 series and then go from Volume 1 to Volume 2 and Volume 3 to Volume 4 and Volume 5 to Volume 6, I shouldn't have to stop and go read another series to understand what's going on here. This is a huge problem. None of this makes any sense at all. Even if it did make sense, it's just not very well written. It feels very jarring, very disjointed. We're being introduced to characters that we will never see again. I don't know if these characters are going to be important later in some of the other Earth 2 books that were going on around this time, and if they are, they need to do a better job of telling us that in this book. Unfortunately, I cannot recommend that you read Volume 6 of Earth 2. If you are a fan of the earlier volumes, I would recommend that you read Volume 5 and you pretend like the series just got canceled. Don't read this volume because it's really horrible. So those are my thoughts on Earth 2 Volume 6 Collision. I hope that you guys liked this video, and if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll be back tomorrow with a different video. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.